Hello everyone. In this tutorial video we are just going to do a summation or just a brief of the previous all the lectures that we have covered so far. So if you just go through this video, then it may be possible that all of your doubts and all of your queries will get solved. So just quickly go through this video. I think most of your problems will get solved. So let's start with the first topic that we had covered in this unit 4, that is about well hydraulics and aquifer. As we had already explained that aquifers are nothing but they are the geological formation which holds the groundwater, and when we want the groundwater to come at the top surface, we need to dig certain wells in order to extract those waters. So we dig on certain wells to extract the water from those aquifers. So these are basically the geological formation which holds the water. Depending upon the nature of those formation, whether they can hold the water, whether the water can pass through them, whether the retention time of these impermeability of these geological formation are up to the mark or not, what are the actual impervious um, nature of the geological formation are. So depending upon that, we had further categorized that into various categories like of aquiclude, aquitard, and we have seen so many of the such type of geological formation, like 4 or 5 geological formation we had seen. So in that we had aquiclude, aquitard, we had also similarly we have aquifers also, and that simply depends upon whether that geological formation is porous or not, whether they can hold the water for longer duration of time. It simply depends upon all these parameters, and then we basically classify all those geological formation. But among them the most important is of aquifer, and we further classify again into its several categories, like whether it is unconfined or post or confined aquifer. So it will be unconfined aquifer if the bottom is impervious layer and above there is no any impervious layer. Next, it will be a post aquifer if the water is contained over the impervious layer, and this is quite far away from the actual source of the water, and this water will obviously get exhausted soon, but not this water, so that will be a post aquifer. Next, we have seen the confined aquifer, on which both on the top and bottom we had the impervious layer. So all these things we have seen. These are the water table when we have artesian wells and non-artesian. And why we call them artesian? Because these are the artesian. Why we call? Because when we try to dig in the pump, the water will come under certain pressure. That's why it's given a name of artesian. So we have seen all those things like unconfined aquifer, and we also say to be a non-artesian because the water don't come up with the pressure, because there is no any impervious strata over it. That's why we say it as a non-artesian aquifer, and non-confined, both are the same things, so don't get confused over there. Next, we have also seen the pulsed aquifer. I have also shown in the previous slide what is actually the pulsed aquifer. We had the impervious strata over there. There is a reserve of the water, but that is not the whole reserve of the underground of water. That's the main thing. That's a part of it, and when this gets exhausted, it can't be refilled again. So that's the main point to be noted in the case of the pulsed aquifer. Then we had seen the confined aquifer, which is also known as the artesian aquifer. Why? Because on the top and on the bottom layer we have the impervious strata, and in that impervious strata we have the confined water that is present in it, and when we try to dig in the well, the water comes out under certain great pressure. That's why its name given to be artesian aquifer. Similarly, we have seen the next topic like cone of depression. When we try to dig in the wells, tube wells, then these are the groundwater, and when we try to dig in, the water level bends towards the well. That is known as the drawdown, and these are the drawdown curves. So we have all again seen all of these things in our previous slides. Again, when we try to take out the water from this um, well, that's the discharge of pumping of the water. This is the water table. These are the cone of depression or the drawdown, and these are the horizontal and radial movement of the water that was suggested by the Dubit. Again, we had seen everything. Next, we have also seen about discharge. This is known as S, that is drawdown. This is an example of a radial and horizontal flow. It is an example of an unconfined aquifer. This is piezometric surface under pumping. This is the well that we have just drawn over there. So we have seen all of these things. Next is the radius of the influence. So if we try to dig in the well over here, then radius of influence is there. That radius of influence is defined as the radius up to which this drawdown curve is effective, and after that it's come in a straight line. So this is the radius of the influence. So that's we have seen. We have only seen a part of it, that is this rectangular view, but this is a 3D view that will make you help to understand this quite better. Next thing is how we can extract the water. That's the main thing. To how we can extract the water, we have the provision of pumps, we have got springs. Similarly, we can also extract the water through the infiltration galleries. So next thing, what is that infiltration gallery? So this is an example of an infiltration gallery that is being shown. This is a river, these are the filter packs, and we have just arranged tunnel over here that is known as infiltration gallery, which is constructed at a depth of 3 to 5 meter along the bank of the river in water bearing strata. Okay, and we can just take out water from here. So this is an example of an infiltration gallery, and by which we can extract the ground water. Similarly, there is again equation of the discharge through it, and this is the equation of the discharge through those artesian infiltration gallery. Then we have seen the infiltration well in the previous slides also. Then we have artesian springs. These are the artesian spring which the water comes out due to the pressure inside of it, because they are artesian, they are on the top and bottom, they are impervious strata. So if water comes out naturally, there is no any human effort over there, that is known as water spring. Okay, next thing is the well. This is the new topic that I have not covered in the previous lecture. So we have further classified well into two categories of open well and tube well. Open well is of two types, shallow and tube well is of two types, screen type and cavity type. In the open well, we have shallow and tube depending upon what is the actual depth of the well from the top surface. If it's a shallow depth, then it will be shallow. If it has a great depth, then it will be tube. Since it is open, it means that whatever the water are there that is open to the atmospheric, that's why it's open. But in the tubular wells, we have the bore wells type of system, in which there is less chances of contamination of the water by the atmospheric agents. So this is the main difference between the open well and the tube well. So depending upon how we can extract and what are the depths are there, that we are going to see further. So these are the things, and there is a piping effect also. That piping effect which is due to mainly the let's see here, I will show you the piping effect. Okay, so this is an example of an shallow as well as deep. So in this case, you can see that the height from the top strata is not so deep. That's example of a shallow. But if goes to at a very great depth, then it will be a case of the deep well. So these are the two things of the open well yield. So these are subjected to the atmospheric contamination. So this is one disadvantage in this case. So that's about the contamination that I was talking about. In the shallow, there is a possibility of contamination because they are open to atmospheric. So when the large quantity of water which cannot be extracted by the shallow well, as with increase in discharge, there may be chances that you can't extract all of them. So the velocity of flow through the well obviously increases, and if its velocity exceeds the critical value, then that leads to the destabilization of the well lining. Whatever the well lining are there, then there may be a destabilization in that, and that process is known as piping, and that results in the sinking of the well. It may leads to its sinking, so that effect is known as piping. Next is that we have seen the recuperation test also in the previous slides, and we have seen the methodologies to determine the discharge through the recuperation test. So this is an example of that recuperation test. Again, we could actually determine the discharge through that recuperation, and on the basis of that we can just calculate the yield of the well if we know this formula. Similarly, we have seen also the specific yield, also how much the volume of water that could be drawn from the well for the per unit head. So we have seen all of these things. We have also seen the Themin's theory in our previous slide, and we have also seen so many assumptions regarding the Themis theory. So this is a brief idea about the Themis theory, about cone of depression, initial potential line, all those drawdown heights, and we have again also everything. And we similarly there is the derivation of the formula and the Themis equation. Again, we have seen this equation in our previous tutorial video. Similarly, that was also given by the two bits, but the main difference between is that he used the previous theory in order to determine his theory. Then we also seen the concept of the transferability, and again how it's effect of this formula. Also we have also seen of those cases. Similarly if it is a case of well in an unconfined aquifer, or the case of a well in a confined aquifer, all those cases we have also seen. And similarly we have also established a equation of the discharge, and we have just replaced this value over here, and we have calculated the Themin's and the Dupit's formula. So again there were certain assumptions, well losses and specific capacity. So this was the topic that we had covered in our last slide about the well losses and a specific capacity. Again we have seen everything. We have again seen what is the actual well loss and formation loss due to the formation of the well, and due to the pumping effect the discharge comes to be C1Q, and due to the losses due to the speed of the water in this tube, as well as the water when coming through this porous medium inside the well, and then that loss is incurred as a well loss, and that is denoted by here C2Q. So these again thing we have seen our previous video. Correspondingly we have numerical also. You can go through this numerical and solve that numerical, and if any problem arises then you can share with me your problem. Okay, thank you for watching.